Hi, and welcome to my podcast on real relationships. My name is Sophie Passon, and I am a relationship expert, international speaker, and best-selling author of the book The Other Half. I decided to start this podcast because, in my opinion, relationships are currently not being portrayed as what they really are. Whether you're watching the news, TV, or social media, the perception given to people is wrong. And my aim is to talk about what happens in the real world, talk about the real stories, and listen to what real people think, do, or go through, as opposed to creating expectations of something that doesn't actually exist. I may not agree with everything that is said by my guests, but it is their chance to express their opinions and their stories. And here today we have Joan E, and we are going to talk about a subject. Do you hate the one you love? Because actually they're both like very similar emotions. So hi Joan, tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Well, I'm a psychotherapist. I've been in clinical private practice since 1978. I'm a mother of 5 children, a grandmother of 8. I have a life partner. I've written a couple of books, and I'm a blogger.
So obviously hate and love are actually emotions that are very close. But would you say that there's common reasons for feeling that way towards a person that you love?
Yeah, well, let me make a point about the word hate. In this world today, particularly in our country, I don't know about any other country, but hate is a nasty word now. I take a whole chapter on to define and to make the distinction between the nasty word hate and the vernacular that we have, that we use hate all the time. Like, I hate driving in traffic. I hate going on an airplane when there's turbulence. I hate the way my hair looks today. It's part of our natural vernacular that we use in the English language. I don't know about other languages, but certainly in our English language. So when I talk about, do you hate the one you love? It's really that we don't hate the person. What we hate is the behavior and the way they are responding to us in a relationship. Because today, with these busy times where everybody's working and everybody's busy and doing their own thing, there's really very little time to nourish a relationship. And that's what we need, is nourishment. Just like a plant, if you don't water or sunlight, it'll die. And over the years that I have been working with couples, women would come into my office and they would really be angry, even with their spouses or with their partners or boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever their partner was. And he'd be sitting there, right there on the couch. She would say, I hate him. I hate him. I can't stand him. He's such a jerk. He's an idiot. He's an asshole. I can't even say the words that I've heard over the years. And they were always coming, the same kind of verbiage I would hear from one woman after the other, and whether their partner was with them or not. If the partner was with them, I would look over at the partner and they would go,
Were men not saying the same things then? Was it just women?
I want your audience to know this. In all the years that I've been seeing couples, I have never once heard a man say, I hate her.
Interesting.
A woman says it all the time. A man, they express it. A man just sits there and either goes like this, or he might say things like, she doesn't understand me. She spends too much money. She's got too much going on. She plays tennis more than she takes care of the kids. But I've never heard a man say, I hate her. It seems to be a gender kind of thing over the years. So what happened, I said, well, why are you with someone that you hate? And the answer was always the same. Well, I love him. But when he acts like a jerk, or when he's not present and he doesn't see me, doesn't hear me, he doesn't understand me, and sometimes he even gaslights me or judges me or criticizes me. There's so much contempt in the relationship. I hate him. I understood what they were coming from. It was their behavior. It wasn't the person, because they would also follow it up by saying, sometimes it's great when he's present. We're having fun. We like the same things. We go to movies together. We like the same music. We go on vacation. We have good sex. So I said, well, what do you hate about him if it's not him, really? And it was hard for them to understand that there was a distinction between the behavior person. I would ask, for example, why do you love him? What is it about him that you love? Well, he's a good provider. He's a wonderful father, but he could be an asshole too. But so I would try to show them that it's not them that they hate. It's some of the behaviors. So I wrote the book, I Hate the Man I Love. And unfortunately, it was released on October 20th, 2020. The height of COVID, and the bookstores were closed. And I couldn't get anything going with that book. So my editor said, don't let it go. It's really something that it's very challenging now for relationships to be healthy.
Especially at that time, actually.
And let's rewrite it. It's a revision of I Hate the Man I Love, because that sounded even like a male bashing book, and it wasn't at all male bashing, because men have the same feelings as women, and they, as a matter of fact, I think men get hurt worse sometimes than women do. Women they express themselves easier, and they talk. They have,
Men don't like to share
right.
how they feel, do they?
100%. When they have a communion with their friends, it's about sports or about the stock market or about the job. Women, when they get together with girls, they unveil themselves. They share deeply. So it's just a gender thing, I think.
What do you think, with all your experience, what brings relationships to actually break down? Is it that people don't know how to communicate properly?
Well, that was a wonderful question, and I'm really grateful that you asked it. The relationship doesn't live between the two people. The relationship lives in the space between the two people, and that space is sacred space, according to Martin Buber, a great philosopher, and it's true. That space over time will become polluted if people are not aware of the things that they need to do and have to keep the relationship healthy and mature, to have what we call relational maturity. And how that happens is because of what you just said. People don't know how to communicate effectively. They come from different family styles, family of origin, watched how their parents did or didn't resolve conflicts, and most of them didn't. They swept it under the carpet until the carpet began to look like the Swiss Alps.
Yeah.
And it became the relational space between them became dangerous. And then they reacted to the danger that they both co-created in the space. And they grew apart and they couldn't talk. And they started using the old ways that they saw their parents. Either they shut down, they went on a personal protest and didn't speak to each other, or they were shouting or name calling, gaslighting, judgments, criticism, everything that destroys a relationship. And they didn't even do it intentionally. It came because they came from family of origins, that they learned their behaviors that they brought to the relationship, carrying the wounds and the traumas that happened to them individually. And they unconsciously select partners that will give them the biggest nightmare of their lives.
What would you say are the things that they don't talk about? Because one of the things I've seen a lot is often people don't share the little details because, there's no point, it doesn't matter. But actually, these little details often become the big things, don't they?
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of shame that people have, and they're not even aware of it as shame. They don't even think about it. They haven't really evolved enough to be able to see it as having been shame-based or fear-based from childhood. And so when it comes to declaring or opening up and being honest and revealing of their true feelings, they block them. So they end up not even knowing each other, except for surface value or what they first got attracted to, which was strictly chemistry. It takes time to know somebody, and it takes the ability to communicate and have a cooperative partner and have a collaboration and commitment that we're going to get through this. We're committed to get through this. So it takes two very evolved, mature people to have a healthy relationship.
Do you think, because sometimes what I see is people, and I've seen it in friends and some family members, where people are together for a while, like a few years, and then it's a case of, we might as well get married, as opposed to asking themselves a real question, which is, do we have the same life vision? Do we actually want the same things?
Exactly.
Where it then becomes a good idea to get married. But with the ones that have gone with, well, we might as well get married, it rarely works. And what I've seen is, even if they're still married, it's not a happy relationship.
Yeah, well, there's a certain wisdom in sticking to your own kind and having compatible values, having the same kind of principles, the belief systems. It makes it easier, but sometimes opposites attract. It's common. You find yourself in love, or think you're in love, the first part of your romance, which lasts about 18 months. And then afterwards, you find out that you're very different. You know, who I signed up for him. What did I didn't sign up for you, or I signed up to be with her. It's kind of like you start out with Dr. Jekyll and then you turn the corner and there's Hyde.
But it's perception, isn't it? Because sometimes we just see what we want to see. The person hasn't changed one bit. It's just about we are just seeing who they really are as opposed to who we wanted to see.
Oh, this happens so often. When I'm seeing somebody that is beginning a relationship or not in one and wants one, I give them certain cognitive, practical skills, things I can live without and things I can't live without. And then you make a list of what do you want in a relationship. And most people will start out by saying, I want a best friend or someone that has my back, someone that's trustworthy, honest, it's affectionate. They have a whole list. And then I'll say, well, how do you know if this person that you just met has all those traits? And they look at me like, well, they seem to, I've been with them 3 or 4 times. And I said, think about it. 3 or 4 times is enough time to know. What happens when you have a date and one of your children is sick and you have to break the date? How does that person react to that? Or that you have a commitment at the office that you can't get out of and you can't go. This is both men and women, not just one gender. How do they respond to that? What is their moods like? You need time. And then I tell them the thing they don't want to hear.
Yeah.
When you get between the sheets, you start projecting things on that other person that are not there, and you think you're falling in love, and you're really not falling in love. You're in a codependent issue right then and there. You really need time to know who that person is. So this is what they don't want to hear. Don't get between the sheets for at least 3 months. What? 3 months? Are you kidding? All right, 2 months. I can't do that. I mean, you want sex. Well, you can say, listen, I want to get to know you as a friend first. I need time to feel comfortable before I give you my body. You know, it's a very sacred thing. And if a man is really interested in you and really wants to develop something, he will respect you for that and he will do it. And if he doesn't, he's not for you. But it doesn't matter because once they go out of the office, and they see that man across the room, and I always tell them, if you go into a room with 100 people or 100 men and 100 women, and there's that one person that draws you, that's a magnet to you, leave that room right away because you don't want that. Because that's the inner child that's been wounded that selects that person. It's not about anything else, a chemistry, you want to call it chemistry.
Yeah, this is interesting, isn't it? Because that's exactly what people are looking for. I think it's kind of a Disney movie, isn't it? The man disappears around you. He rocks up on his white horse with fireworks out of the bag. Violins just appear out of nowhere. And that's what people see.
Exactly. We grew up on this, someday my prince will come, Snow White and Cinderella. And we live happily ever after. And as kids, we take all that in.
But as I've often said, there's a reason why there isn't a part 2, because the part 2 is not that glamorous. It's routine and it's cleaning the kids' bums.
Yeah, you are 100% accurate. You're spot on.
So would you say that the other thing as well, because I think that often when people don't communicate and that little thing becomes a big thing also because it's the resentment. But someone can't do something about something if you've not actually voiced it.
Yeah. Well, communication is key to understanding. And there are different types. There are people that are turtles and they don't talk. They go within and they become silent because they become fearful of sharing because their partner is rough. They yell or they scream. They're just the opposite. They're hawkish. And the other one is a turtle. And it's funny how often these two find each other, where one is the dominant and one is a recessive. It interferes with ability to communicate because, let's say, the woman, and by the way, it's not always a woman that's recessive. Sometimes a man is quiet and doesn't talk. He just goes into his man's cave, and you don't hear from him. Can't we talk? We have to work through this. I don't want to talk about this now. So you get that kind of rejection, and the woman will get confused or frustrated, angry. We need to talk about it. It's something that we have to resolve. And you'll get like a silent treatment, stonewalled, which of course is one of the destructive features of every relationship.
Yeah.
And it can happen on both sides. A woman can be afraid to talk because she's afraid that he might be louder or judgmental or tell her that she's crazy, which is like gaslighting, contemptuous, criticizing. This is where they need to be able to work through the stuff that's not allowing the communication blockade there. And of course, when they get swept under the carpet, and that carpet starts to look like the Swiss Alps, that relational space between them becomes uncomfortable to a feeling of being dangerous that they co-created together. And then that's the end of their relationship. That's when divorces will occur.
Yeah.
Or some people live in a state of quiet desperation all their lives. And if one person is an addict, or both people are addicts, forget it. There's no way you're going to have a healthy relationship, because the codependent who's not involved in an addiction is going to be policing the other one, how many bottles and so forth. So these relationships really suck. They're just not healthy. Two people have to be on the same page. They have to share the same principles, like I said, the same values.
Do you think that society and the expectations of society have an influence on how we process our emotions, how we sometimes deal with relationship stuff? Like, if you're single, there's something wrong with you. You should be married by a certain age. You should have kids. You do all of these things. And then when you are married with the kids and stuff, you should still like conform to something that, I don't know who made it up when, but it seems to be that there's something.
Yeah. Well, it comes from generational, from, what your parents are waiting. When are you going to have your first kid? We're waiting for a grandchild. What's taking you so long? What's wrong with you that you're not married? And wondering, are you gay? Are you a lesbian? Making them feel shamed that they haven't lived up to the expectations or the assignment.
Or in my case, my mother's saying that I'm selfish for not having kids.
Yeah, I mean, that's her expectation. And you're entitled to have your own, but you're separate from your mother. But sometimes parents make their offspring, their children, feel that they should adapt the principles of what the parents have. That's not healthy. There are many parents that try to induce or tell their children that they should be doctors when they grow up, because they'll make a lot of money and they'll have a lot of respect and blah, blah, blah. And the kid has no interest in being a doctor, but he feels that he has to go in that direction. My son is a perfect example of that. Mm-hmm. He really should never have been a doctor, although he is a good one. His interest was really more in literature and political science. But his father and his grandfather pushed him into that. And I don't know whether he really has soulful content and is happy. He says he is, but I don't believe him.
You're not convinced, yeah.
He didn't follow his bliss. He didn't become the person that he was intended to be, although he's still a very good doctor. There's something missing there. A child has to really follow their own bliss and to be the person that they want to be and do the things that they want to be. I know many doctors.
We're so conditioned.
Yes.
To having to please our parents with like what they want us to do, not to do, and then you end up in a relationship and actually you carry on doing the same thing, aren't you? It's the same cycle in essence.
Exactly. And there's so many parents unwittingly and unconsciously interfere with the choices that their kids make, and they make it so difficult. They have certain expectations of the kind of man their daughter should marry, or the kind of woman their son should marry. And when they get to pick their own choice, they get involved. And why did this is not going to work out, and blah, blah, blah. It's not the same religion, you're not from the same country, you're looking for trouble. There's a certain wisdom in sticking to your own kind. So there's a lot of hurt on everyone's side. Parents get angry. The in-law son or daughter-in-law feels rejected or not accepted, and it moves into that relationship of the daughter and the when she married, or the son and when he married, and then that becomes an issue.
And the thing as well, really, it's not our problem,
right?
Forget.
So the expectations that are placed upon us by our parents, and depending upon the culture that we live in, and religion. The Catholic Church does something really good. They make anyone that's getting married have some kind of premarital therapy before. I don't know whether it's effective, but at least they have it. They do the same thing in Jewish religion, but it's not mandatory. In the Catholic religion, it is mandatory.
Yeah, but the problem is, they only see, they say for better, for worse. They don't think about the worse. They think it's only for the better.
I think they've got to change.
Well, that's going to happen.
Yeah, and some people will stick to it and live lives of quiet desperation, and other people will get out of it. So you really have to work these things out before you get married, because you don't realize how important those decisions are until they come about. Suddenly you're in the midst of a crisis, and these crises end up with hurt, pain, anger, dissatisfaction, frustration, and sometimes there's a divorce, and sometimes somebody capitulates to the other and just gives in, and they live that kind of a life. There are so many marriages that are still intact that shouldn't be intact for reasons of money, for reasons of children, and for reasons of being afraid to be alone. So many women.
But they're not teaching the kids, if they have any, about healthy relationships.
Exactly. You have to model for what you want for your children, not tell them. They watch the behavior, not the words.
Question for you, just like popped into my mind. In the UK, and I may be wrong, but this is generally like the feeling I have, I generally believe that people only go counselling as a tick the box exercise before the divorce. It really feels like that the person who isn't the instigator, shall we say, takes them counselling, they come along because then they can say they've tried it all, and then off they go. Is it the same in the States, or is it slightly more proactive in the States?
I think people are more universal than not, whether they live in the United States or the UK. I think it's similar. If you confront somebody as a therapist, point out, and they don't want to hear it, they may not come back for the next session because they'll find fault with the therapist. They have to be open to looking at another perspective, because...
Which is why you get them to say yes.
Yeah, right. They need to be open-minded. There's an accident and 3 people happen to witness it. You're going to get 3 different reports.
Yeah.
Perspective is different depending upon the filters of each person, the history of each person, and even the shape of the cornea of the eye. So it's different perspectives, but when you can help them look at another perspective and they're willing to be open to it, then you have a chance. But when people are determined to be right rather than happy, I'd rather be right than happy, you got to know where to go with. You have to have fair fighting. The most important thing in a therapeutic relationship with a couple or individual is not the tools, is the connection between the client and the therapist. If you feel comfortable with that person, somehow there's a resonance. That is more effective than all the fancy methodology that's around there now. And it takes a long time to accrue all these skills. You can't just do it when you come out of college and become a clinical therapist and open up a practice. You don't know anything.
There's an element of life experience. I know that I've never been married, but if I look at like when I used to work back in the corporate world, you can learn from other people's marriages. You can see from how they react and what they say, don't say, and whatever. You can still learn a lot from that if you're open to it.
Yes, right. To be able to see the other person's side and to extend oneself to be able to do that is a mature thing. And also it's a sign of, okay, let me put myself in her place, or let me put myself in his place, and to see the language of the other person.
At a weekend, a friend of mine came round. We were talking about a relationship. And she was saying that, she doesn't understand and she doesn't feel supported. And the problem is, all you do is you tell him the same thing all of the time. I said, he can't hear it. It's white noise.
Yes.
You've got to talk to what resonates with him. So I started explaining to her, for example, about love languages and how to her it's probably acts of service, and to him it's probably physical touch. So he's responding in the way that he can, but she's not recognizing that. And then, I didn't do it with her, but there's an exercise in NLP, which is perceptual positions, where you literally get people to get into each other's shoes, and then you kind of scramble their brains with cranes and stuff. And then they can actually understand that ultimately they kind of want the same thing, but just going about it for completely different directions.
Absolutely. No question about it. I'm so grateful that I had such wonderful mentors because I couldn't have done it without them. Okay. So, our learnings come from people that can teach us what they think is valuable to our profession.
Absolutely. So going back to do you hate the one you love, how does that get resolved, so to speak? Is there a way to get it resolved?
Oh, the strategies that we use to heal and to save these relationships are pretty much like I just gave you a description. In couples therapy, I have to have the big fat yes from both people. If they're in any kind of an addiction, they've got to get clean and sober because you're not dealing with the essence and the authenticity of the person. And they have to be willing to be, like I said, open-minded, because closed-minded people that want to be right rather than happy, are not good candidates for this. So, and there are some marriages that should not be. That you have to get out of. I don't believe in abuse with anybody.
Yeah.
Chronic abuse or any kind of abuse. Prove it, that I won't support that in any relationship. I had a couple that I was seeing, they were both drinking and they were physically fighting and they wanted therapy. I said, I can't support this. You both have to get clean and sober before I'll even see you after 3 months of being fought. And I didn't see them for many years. And then they came back about 4 or 5 years later, clean and sober. And it was a different experience altogether.
But it's quite unbelievable because they were clearly stick together for
They
that amount of time.
Well, they were in what we call a sadomasochistic relationship, which came from both of their families of origin. They had the same experience as children. So they recreated it. Freud talked about repetition compulsion, the need to repeat. And Alice Miller.
It's that generational trauma, isn't it?
Yes, it's multi-generational toxic shame. We pass it from one generation to the other. And as we go back in history, it was worse than it is today. Because there was incest and there were things going on that were, spare the rod and spoil the child. They got beaten. Although I've seen it in my patient population, of kids that were beaten, kids that were sexually abused. I have one lady now that she's probably the worst case I've ever seen, but the best outcome I've ever seen also. She was abused by her father sexually. I mean, I can't even tell you how awful it was because I wouldn't want to put it on the program. But in 47 years, I've never heard anything as bad as this. And her two sisters, one committed suicide, the other one is a criminal and an alcoholic. And she rose up to become a lawyer, a prosecuting attorney, and now a mayor. And now she's running for House of Representatives. So people do become phoenixes if they are determined. So there is a free will. And although Robert Sapolsky, who is really a genius, and he's a primatologist, he's a neuroscientist, he's a professor at Stanford University, he doesn't believe in free will. He believes that wherever you're born, whoever you're with, that's your future. He doesn't believe in it. I take an issue with that, but
I've looked at free will at length, and I've not entirely come to a conclusion because it seems to start here and then you go around full circle where you kind of have free will and then you enter some other realm and then you go back to actually you don't, sort of thing. I just feel that we have some free will. It just feels that there might be a line and we just go left and right of it, and here and there we cross it back where we're supposed to.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I believe in a lot of what he says. If you're born in Gaza, you're going to grow up differently than if you're born in Beverly Hills, California, or London. But I think that if we didn't have a free will, my profession would be a sham. All these 47 years,
Quite,
I've seen change, amazing changes in people, healing and growth.
So we're getting towards the end of our time together. What pearl of wisdom would you leave us with?
I think that the most important thing really in life is to become the person that you were intended to be and not live out anyone else's assignments or expectations, and to trust yourself, trust your feelings, to make sure that you love yourself, because if you don't love yourself, you can't love anyone else. And to take the time to grow just and heal, make that a priority so that you can have the best possible life for the rest of your life, rather than going to your death and never knowing who the hell you were, which is the tragedies of tragedy. And that pretty sums it up. I mean, there's a lot more. I could go on for another hour, but I think that those are the priorities: to really know who you are, to love yourself, and to be able to set boundaries and protect yourself. I'm very conscious of that, especially at this age. I had friends for many, many years that I don't want in my life anymore because they're not safe. They're not people that care about me and that I care about them. So they're excluded. And you can do that as you get older and you get wiser. There's a lot of wisdom in being 85 years old that you don't have when you're 35. So
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Right, Joan, thank you so much for sharing. And for everybody else, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, then please subscribe, leave us a review, and more importantly, come back for the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you so much.